Welcome to Beyond J from Sacramento State, taking conversations worth having from the campus to the region, the state, and the world. I'm your host, Philip Allstott, and today I have the pleasure of introducing to the show celebrated author, scholar, amateur boxer, sneakerhead, and current Sacramento State president, Dr. Luke Wood.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I myself have been around, been paying attention. I've interviewed you before, and I show up to a lot of events. So I feel like I've heard a lot of Luke Wood stories.
Yeah.
But could you tell us something that people still don't know about Luke Wood?
Oh, gosh, something people still don't know. Band.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a musician. I play guitar and a little bit of piano. Grew up taking piano lessons, and as a student here at Sacramento State, played a lot of what are called nooners. So nooners are on the back end of the union, where you go up on the stage, and then basically there's a band and you play at noontime. That's why it's called the nooner.
Yeah.
And so as a student here, we always played nooners, and we played at establishments around this local area. And we had a pretty good following. Our band was called Free State. The whole idea is like a free state of mind.
Yeah.
So FREEST and then the number 8. So the band was a pretty good band, and we did pretty good. We had a lot of folks who would show up to our shows. There was a local place around here. We'd pack out 200, 300 people pretty much every time we played.
Yeah.
And it was a 3-piece band. So I played guitar, my brother played bass guitar, and then we had a drummer. And then we always had a little keyboard nearby in case one of us would do something a little bit different. And it was kind of like a mixture, if you think of like Creed and Pearl Jam and maybe some kind of newer age stuff kind of mixed in there, right? So that was like our style. And so, as I mentioned, we were actually pretty decent. And there was the person who was the owner of the establishment had been involved in the record industry, and he had said that, well, hey, I really want to introduce you to this record company. And so, and it was a major record company, one that's still around today, major record company. And so they came out to one of our shows, and they took photos and video of us. They came out to another show just to see, like, hey, was that like a one-time thing that they've got this place packed out like this and the music's actually pretty good? Yeah. And then they had decided that they wanted to sign us. So so basically we show up for this, what's supposed to be the most important gig of our careers, right? And so the place is packed with all these students, and me and my brother were setting up our amps and our keyboard and all the stuff for our equipment. And so we didn't see our drummer. So we call our drummer like, hey man, where you at? And he was so nervous with such anxiety. He said, man, I know you don't want to hear this, man, but I can't do it. And I said, what do you mean you can't do it? They're here to sign us right now. Brother, I don't care. Make it over here. He's like, man, I can't. I just can't. Oh. And it was so anxiety producing for him that he didn't show. So me and my brother just then did an acoustic set instead. And it was actually pretty good, right? It was a pretty good acoustic set. And at the end, the gentleman came up to us and he said, hey, I just want to tell you that was a fantastic set, but I wasn't here to sign an acoustic group. I was here to sign a rock band. And I appreciate the fact that you tried to make something work. But when we're talking about professional acts, he says there has to be a level of seriousness, and having your drummer not show is kind of a deal breaker for us. So I appreciate the fact that we were able to have a good conversation with you all, and I wish you all the best. And then he left. And that was the time that me and my brother almost got signed. My life would be totally different. I would have traveled the world. We probably would have made no money at all. And it wouldn't have mattered. It would have been a ton of fun. And so someday when this is all said and done, we'll still go back and go for it one more time and see if we can make something work. But I love music. I love being a musician. And I was almost not a graduate of Sacramento State, almost not the president of Sacramento State, because I was about to be on the road, traveling, playing guitar, singing, being a rock star. So there's a story you probably haven't heard.
No, that was gold. Well, let's shift maybe to something a little heavier. So I was thinking about DEI initiatives, which, I mean, really spurred the earlier podcast episodes. It's been something that's been important to Sac State, but suddenly the national conversation is changing.
Yeah.
You know, and it seemed like we're on this trajectory to, I don't know what else to call it, be a woke nation. And suddenly you have institutions that are cracking down, not just abandoning, but doing the opposite, taking this thing in reverse.
Yeah.
And so I just want to hear from you, well, how you feel about that maybe, but also why it's important that Sac State is taking a different approach and doubling down on DEI. Well,
Sacramento State, the vision for Sacramento State is that we become the North Star of the West. So in folklore, for those who were around during the time of slavery, those who were enslaved in the South and wanted to escape to the North went through what was called the Underground Railroad. And as part of the way that folks guided themselves from the South to the North was using the North Star. And so in African American culture, it is a metaphor that has immediate resonance with people about what that means. So when we say we want to be the North Star of the West, we want to be that place that people look to and say, this is where I want to be because this is where I know that I'll be in a place that cares about me, cares about my success, and most importantly, it'll be a safe environment.
Yeah.
And so right now, you see the opposite happening in the country. And it all really began with the murder of George Floyd, right? And I think many of us still vividly remember the video of that incident, and when this man was begging for his life and calling out for his mother as he was being murdered on live video. And as you know, the outgrowth of that, the Black Lives Matter movement, had such an incredible growth during that time frame. And not just the Black Lives Matter movement, but all kind of justice related movements around what was happening in policing. And so, even my own work as a scholar during that time was really accented by that, looking at the parallels between what happens in policing and what happens even in schooling in terms of the over suspensions of Black children and the over expulsions and the over placement in special education. And so I've oftentimes used the moniker that Black lives and Black minds are intertwined. For if one does not value the life, then they certainly will not value the mind. And Sacramento State, as a Black serving institution, as an Asian and Pacific Islander serving institution, as a Hispanic serving institution, as home to California Tribal College, we're going, as you mentioned, the opposite direction. But after the murder of George Floyd, there was this backlash against all this energy, right? Because every single company said, hey, we're going to have a commitment to hiring more diverse people. Every single college and university released a statement saying, here are commitments to minoritized communities, right? Every single politician and political leader said that, hey, we need to have more community-based policing. We need to provide pathways into greater prosperity for minoritized communities. And those things were happening, right? There was all these commitments that were put out there. There was movement, and then there was the backlash to that movement. Yeah. The backlash to that movement is in places like Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, and go on and on and on. The elimination of AP African American Studies, the war against critical race theory, the war against ethnic studies, the elimination of chief diversity officers, the elimination of DEI offices, to the point where if you even focus on diversity and inclusion, that you are viewed as somehow being violent towards majority communities. And so when you see all that taking place, and then you see students of color in those institutions, in those states, and you know the harm that they're going through in terms of what's happening in the curriculum, what's happening with letting go of faculty members and staff members, what's happening with the climate of those institutions. And at the same time, those same institutions, they'll put a Black student or a Latinx student on the front of their brochure. And so I say to all those students in all those states, don't go to a place where you're going to be viewed as a number on a sheet. Come to a place like Sacramento State, the North Star of the West, where you'll be viewed as a name, a community, and a future. And so I see it as sad that it's happening, but I also think that the light shines the brightest when there's darkness all around. And so that darkness that is happening in those states, the Cal State system serves as a light, and I believe that Sacramento State serves as the brightest light within that as the North Star of the West.
That was actually pretty insightful for me. I didn't know about the North Star thing. And for me, it just, it just made sense as a thing to say. I see it, we're a beacon, right? But having that extra information, it really hit me. And so this has led to initiatives like Black Honors College. And I heard you in another interview, you were asked about something like, well, with Black Honors College, is it going to be exclusionary? Is this going to just set up a different kind of silo? And honestly, I don't feel like the answer that was broadcasted really gave you the opportunity to speak how I feel as somebody who is part of the Sac State community. Because, for instance, I was at the Juneteenth Symposium, and in a moment where I was feeling very isolated and like an outsider as a white male, your wife, Idara, came up to me, recognized me, told me she was so glad that I was there to see me, and started a conversation. And it was really at the peak of me feeling lonely at that event. And it just transformed the whole day for me. And so I truly believe that the intention here is to bring people together and not isolate or not set up a silo. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to hear that about who I call my bride, my wife Idara.
Yeah.
And she has just such an amazing spirit. I'm a very blessed man, and I'm glad that her spirit helps to create that kind of environment, because what you're talking about is we are trying to be inclusive, right? We are trying to create an opportunity for students who haven't had the opportunities in the way that they deserve. So I want to give a flippant response, and then I'll give my actual response.
Okay. All right.
My flippant response to those who say that a Black Honors College is somehow racist or exclusionary or against our value system, I say, well, what about all the white honors colleges out there? Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, Yale, Dartmouth, Brown, Stanford, right? I said Stanford twice for a reason, but right. Why is that? There's a visceral reaction to it by some communities, when in reality the same thing has been happening in terms of exclusion, not the same thing. There has been a path of exclusion that's been happening at many institutions for many years. And all we're trying to do is to create opportunities where there hasn't been. So the Black Honors College, where does that come in? So the Black Honors College, first and foremost, is not only open to Black students. It is open to anyone who is interested in Black history, life, and culture. It is a general education experience where students can come in, they can learn their normal history class, their normal sociology class, their normal English class, their normal math class, but taught from a standpoint that emphasizes and elevates Black history, life, culture, and contributions to those respective disciplines. You don't have to be Black to say that that's the experience that you want. And if you look at the Black Honors College, many of those students are Black and African American, but not all of them. And I think that one of the misnomers around the title itself is what happens already with historically Black colleges and universities. For those who attend HBCUs, anybody who's ever been to an HBCU, attended one, you'll know that there's some of the most diverse institutions in the country. Because just because they have a mission focus on serving Black students doesn't mean that they do so at the sake of sacrificing the experience for those students who are Asian, or those students who are white, or those students who are Latinx, right? They're inclusive institutions. And so the Black Honors College is an inclusive institution because we can't fight for inclusion by excluding. That's not our value system. And so it's an institution within the institution that's specifically designed to serve those who are interested in that kind of experience. This year, we had 80 students who started in the inaugural class. And actually, there's inaugural classes because our class that's coming in spring is also part of the inaugural class, but they're part of the inaugural transfer class. And so there'll be 70 more in the spring. And then we're going to grow it to another 250 next year on our pathway to getting to 1,000 or 2,000 students who are part of it.
Yeah.
But the Black Honors College recognizes something that's very important. Historically, Black colleges and universities are all concentrated in the South, in the Northeast. Predominantly Black institutions, which is another federal designation, is also concentrated in the exact same states. And yet that 40% of your students identify Black in order to be able to qualify for that. So if you look at the entire Western United States, entire Midwestern United States, there's not a single institution outside of Charles Drew, right, which is a historically Black graduate institution, not an undergraduate institution, that has a mission focus on doing this. So creating this college is not just creating a single Black honors college, but creating a movement. And now, because of that, people are seeing that. We have colleges and universities now that are reaching out to us because they're also going to start Black honors colleges.
Wow.
And we are actually bringing in someone into Sacramento State who is going to help us build out a national network of Black honors colleges that are certified by Sacramento State. And I'm just going to, without saying the name of the institution, but the very first one is going to be one of our local community colleges here in the Sacramento region that's going to be part of the first Black honors college network that we're going to be starting that's going to go across this country. And we are going to be the new movement where HBCUs have done amazing work in serving the Black community in the South and the Northeast. Black honors colleges is the solution and resolution that we need for the West and the Midwest.
I want to go back to the event thing. You know, I brought up the Juneteenth symposium. It wasn't the only event that I attended in which I see the culture around Sac State amplifying this sort of like idea of being scrappy, right? Hornets are scrappy individuals. And one of the things that I've noticed is that we've almost adopted an anthem of Kendrick Lamar's "Not Like Us."
Yeah.
So I want to put this out there. Like, what does that mean to you when he says "they not like us"? What is that? What are we saying?
They not like us. If you think about that anthem, right? It's really saying that we are distinct, that we are different. So earlier, before we had started recording, I was giving an example of how there are some institutions that call themselves the University of Texas or the Ohio State. But our moniker is not a capital THE, it's a capital OUR. It's our Sacramento State.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a different philosophy because it's not an individualistic philosophy, but a collectivist philosophy that this university belongs to the students, belongs to the faculty, belongs to the staff, belongs to the community, belongs to the alumni. It's also distinguishing us in that many institutions in the country right now are experiencing declines in enrollment.
Yeah.
We're not experiencing a decline in enrollment. In fact, we had 4,000 more applications this year than last year. And we're looking at potentially 3% enrollment growth this year. So we're growing where other universities are declining and in some cases across the country dying. But it's not just that. It's graduation rates. When President Nelson started here, the graduation rate was 8.5%, the four-year graduation rate. When I was a student here, it was like 7%. So it actually increased to the 8.5% that he started with. So I don't know how that happened, but right. But those are numbers that are embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
This year, for the first time ever, continuing that trajectory, we will pass 31% four-year college graduation rate. And of course, our six-year graduation rate is way higher than that. And so we're increasing enrollment. We're increasing in graduation. We're increasing in programs that are designed to serve our community. We just created a new department in nutrition and dietetics. We just established a new bachelor's degree in architectural studies, a bachelor's degree in statistics. So we're creating new programs. We just earlier today, we're at our new art building that's opening up. And so, it's like all these positive things. And so I feel like when we say they not like us, like Sacramento State is ascending. We're becoming a national name. We're no longer a secret because the secret is out and people know that if you want to come to a place that's going to care about you and care about your success, come on over to Sacramento State.
Yeah, I'm hearing that we're not just enrolling students. A lot of institutions are enrolling students. We're educating people, and we're graduating students.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's cool. I like the way
and
that
in
you put it.
graduating students and educating people, we're meeting them where they're at. That's what the Black Honors College does, right? That's what this new focus on AI is doing. That's what Combat U is doing, right? There are ways in which we are thinking about not what it is that we think that students want, but asking students, what is it that you want to see? And then giving them that experience so that we're responding to student voice. Everyone talks about, oh, we should be listening to our students, but how many people actually really do that? And what we're doing is we've done that. The 92 listening sessions that we did last fall, all the different conversations that we've had with students over this summer, and everything that we're putting into place is a direct response to what students want to see.
We've got this campaign going, the way of the Hornet. And I just kind of want to hear in your words, like, what is the way of the Hornet? Because, we're fellow alum of this institution. So I feel like I know what it means to be a Hornet, but you tell me, what is the way of the Hornet?
You don't want to answer first? I want to hear what you think. And then I'll say, I want to hear what you think.
Oh, what is the way of the Hornet? I think I've already used the word Scrappy. And which is good. It makes you sound kind of cool, but at the same time, there's a determination that a Hornet has, because a mentor here on campus once told me, if the Ivy League schools of the world, Harvard or Stanford, happened to disappear one day, it wouldn't matter. They would keep going to school. They would still get their education. They would walk away and have an opportunity. If a Sac State student lost that opportunity, it would be a completely different situation, right? This is a campus of students who are up against different challenges than maybe some of the rest of the academic world. And yet we strive, we thrive, because we're Hornets.
I love that. Actually, I think about it very similarly with some additions, right? So one, like you said, we're scrappy. We're hardworking. Our students represent a different demographic that people want to hire, because our students come out of here with a will and determination, and having communities and families resting on their shoulders.
Yes.
And so I feel like there is a difference between a Sac State student and a graduate of any other institution, in particular a graduate from the University of California. And with the way that Sacramento State is going right now, with the way that we're ascending, it's not very long where people will be talking about the UCs as a backup school for Sacramento State. The second part of it is the Hornet is involved in a hive, right?
Yeah.
And so we're community centric, right? We're focused on our community. We're focused on our community and the local community, right? Through service learning, volunteering at nonprofits, uplifting those who've been downtrodden, but also our campus community, and making sure that we're focused on creating a sense of belonging and mattering for our students. And then the third thing I would say is that we're hands-on and practical, right? Hornets are known for getting it done, right? And when I did the listening sessions and I asked students, like, what is it that makes Sacramento State unique? And I asked faculty members the same thing. Everyone talked about the fact that the learning that we do here is hands-on, it is applied. So that's why, for example, when you get a graduate of Sacramento State from engineering and a graduate from another institution in engineering, they hire Sacramento State grads 9 times out of 10 over those other grads, because they can go to work day one because they know how to do it. They haven't just theorized about it. They haven't just researched about it. They've actually done it. And you can say that across engineering, computer science, nursing, political science. Our students work at the Capitol. Our students run the Capitol, right? You walk down the halls of the Capitol, it's stingers up, stingers up, stingers up, right? Because they're actually doing what they're talking about. They're doing the learning. It's hands-on. And so I feel like the way of the Hornet is around that grittiness, that resilience. It's around that community, that hive that takes care of one another and takes care of our community. And I think it's also around that hands-on, practical, get it done that makes a Sacramento State alumni a Sacramento State student, a Sacramento State faculty member, staff member, administrator, categorically different than anyone else. And I would say that, like, to wrap that all up, our goal here for our students is that when they leave this community, whether they're from abroad internationally, whether they're from the local area, whether they're from out of state, the goal is to leave this community better than you found it. And if you're staying in the community, that's even more so of a passion to do that. And I think that's, and we do. We do. Yeah. We run these streets, right? Look at the president of Folsom Lake College, Sacramento State grad. Look at the vice mayor of the city of Sacramento, Sacramento State grad. Look at one of the most influential business leaders in our region in terms of supply chain, in terms of architectures, government, local government, and development, Sacramento State grad. Look at some of the biggest developers in our regions, Sacramento State grads. We run these streets.
And that's just another example how they not like us.
Right? Exactly.
Okay, we're going to do like a lightning round now to wrap it up. So first question for you is, what's it like to take a punch?
Not that bad. Doesn't hurt as much as you would think, because you learn as a boxer how to take a punch, how to roll your head as it comes in. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you take a straight one and you can feel it and you're like, oh man, that hurt. Oh dang, why am I doing this? But for the most part, they're not as bad as it seems, because you got your adrenaline running.
Yeah. Okay, and now this next one, I got to warn you, might be a little bit controversial, but I'd like to ask those hard-hitting questions. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Ooh. Wow. No. It's not a sandwich because it's not closed.
Oh. Okay.
Now, if you were to take that hot dog bun and then rip it in half and then put it on top of the hot dog, then you could say it's a sandwich. Okay. But because it's got that opening, I don't think it counts.
All right.
That may be the stupidest answer ever.
Okay, and then finally, I think because we're about the same age, I gotta know, did you have a favorite Saturday morning cartoon?
Oh man, of course. DuckTales, Tailspin, and then of course, as I got older, Boy Meets World. Even though it wasn't a cartoon, but it was still a very popular show. Then of course, what was that one with Zach? Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell,
right? So I started with cartoons, and I went to shows as you grew up that were very important.
Yeah.
Of course, our era, Goonies being probably the best movie of all time. Fight Me, and then a little bit later, Sandlot. You're killing me, Smalls. Some of the best. We grew up, I think, with the best era in music and television ever.
Yeah, and toys meant something too.
Yeah.
Now everything's a toy, but back then it's like, you had to collect those muscles or those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the G.I. Joes, right? Yeah. Right? And then, of course, the little, fighting them, having the action figures fight.
Yes.
And then, if you had, we were different, though, right? Because you could give us a basketball or baseball, football. You could give us a rock, and we can find a way to turn it into a game and play all day long.
We could.
Right.
We could. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you for having me.
Yep.
All right.
Beyond J is a production of University Communications at Sacramento State. Our producer is Jonathan Morales. Photography and videography by Bibiana Ortiz. Additional research by Daniel Wilson. And editing by me, your host, Philip Allstott. If you liked this episode, please leave us a review and consider following us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have questions or comments, email us at communications@csus.edu and visit us online at csus.edu/news/beyondj. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.